I am delighted to be with you here today. First thing, let me ask you to excuse the fact that I have a pretty bad cold and my voice isn't as strong as I'd like it to be. But I didn't want to leave a hole in today's conference schedule, and I hope you think I'm better than a hole. You're polite. Thank you. Thank you for that laughter. Well, we shall see. I've watched with great interest two recent controversies spinning in recent months out of two college campuses, one at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, and the other at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. As journalism students, you're probably familiar with both. Now, obviously, these are different publications, different students, and different journalism issues. But both conflicts illustrate why I firmly believe that free speech and responsible journalism are not synonymous. Please allow me to be very clear. The First Amendment is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the rights it guarantees every American absolutely must be protected at all costs. Freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion and the practice thereof, freedom to petition the government for the redress of grievances. I thank God that I live in a country where everyone has these rights. Now, the First Amendment creates what I often describe to journalism students as one big glorious mess that makes this nation great. It flings open the doors to expression we cherish and expression we abhor, find utterly revolting, consider completely nuts, and often wish we could ship to other solar systems. We know, or at least we should, that the best way to combat repugnant or bad speech is with more speech, not less. We're a very noisy bunch here in the United States, and all the better for it. Then there's responsible journalism, the fundamental tenets of which are outlined in the Society of Professional Journalism Ethics Code. Minimize harm, the code says. Show good taste. Show compassion. Be accountable. Those are the honorable and noble limitations that good journalists, responsible journalists, impose on their work every day. In other words, just because you can say or write it doesn't mean you should. I wish someone had convinced the journalism students, the student journalists in Connecticut and Colorado to rethink and not to publish the content that has created such a stir. The Connecticut student newspaper decided to roll with a comic strip that turned the actual news account of a 14-year-old Latino girl who was locked in a closet and urinated on and apparently starved by her captor into a joke, into a punchline. The Colorado paper's editorial board published a 4-word editorial. Taser this, F, dash, 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 Bush, except they were not dashes in the Colorado paper's editorial. We know what the word is. I'm not going to say it even to a group of college kids who almost certainly have heard it and quite possibly have used it in the last 24 hours. But that's not an excuse for putting it in a newspaper. Let me add that the Colorado paper's editorial was accompanied by a tagline saying that the column represents the views of the newspaper's editorial board. Yep, we've got free speech on our hands here, the result of a constitutional right I fight long and hard to protect. But these are not examples of responsible journalism. For what it's worth, my stance on these matters is identical to the one I took when helping to draft SPJ's statement about those cartoons from a year or two ago that mocked the Islamic prophet Muhammad in a Danish newspaper. Some SPJ members were aghast that the statement didn't state something more along the lines of, the journalists have the right to do what they did, leave them alone. I just pointed the critics to SPJ's ethics code. Why bother to have the code, I ask, if SPJ truly stands only for free speech and free press rights and not also for the responsibilities that go with them? What to do about the campus paper's missteps? That's always interesting, and I hope university administrators will act in ways that respect the First Amendment and foster great student journalism. I am very concerned about the newspaper's oversight, particularly in Connecticut, where the student government is the publisher of that newspaper and has the power to dictate the process by which editors are selected or elected. Actually, I think such managerial structures are nuts and smack more of North Korea than the United States. The Colorado State paper is editorially independent, although the university retains some control of the publication through a board of student communications composed of students and faculty. That group has the power to fire the paper's editor-in-chief. Should the editors of these newspapers be fired? I'm asking you what you think.